The sound of a key card sliding into the door lock made my heart race with excitement. I was crouched under the king-size bed in our honeymoon suite, barely able to contain my giggles as I waited to surprise Matt when he returned from getting ice. But as the door opened and footsteps entered our room, something felt wrong. These weren't Matt's heavy, familiar footsteps. These were softer, more deliberate, like someone trying not to be heard. And when I peered out from beneath the bed skirt, my blood turned to ice. The person rifling through our wedding gifts wasn't my new husband. It was Ashley, Matt's ex-girlfriend, and she had somehow gotten into our locked hotel room. My name is Katie, and what I witnessed from underneath that bed on my wedding night would expose a conspiracy so twisted and dangerous that it nearly destroyed my marriage before it even began. This isn't just a story about wedding night surprises gone wrong. This is about obsession, revenge, and how far one woman would go to destroy the happiness she couldn't have for herself. Let me take you back to earlier that day, because you need to understand just how perfect everything seemed before it all went terribly wrong. It was October 15th in Austin, Texas, and I was marrying the love of my life. Matt and I had been together for 2 years, and our wedding at the historic Driscoll Hotel was everything I dreamed of since I was a little girl. The ceremony was held in the hotel's elegant ballroom, with its crystal chandeliers and original 1886 architecture providing the perfect backdrop for our vows. I wore my grandmother's pearl necklace with a flowing white dress that made me feel like a princess, and Matt looked incredibly handsome in his navy blue suit. I'm a registered nurse at Del Seaton Medical Center, and Matt works as a software engineer for a tech startup downtown. We're both practical, down-to-earth people who don't usually go in for elaborate celebrations, but our wedding was the one day we decided to splurge on everything we wanted. The guest list included 150 of our closest friends and family members, and the reception featured a live band, an open bar, and a 3-tier cake that cost more than my car payment. Everything was absolutely perfect, or so I thought. The first sign that something was off came during the ceremony itself. As I walked down the aisle toward Matt, I spotted someone in the back row who definitely shouldn't have been there. Ashley Morrison, Matt's ex-girlfriend, was sitting in the very last pew, wearing a black dress and staring at us with an expression I couldn't quite read. She wasn't on our guest list, and I was certain we hadn't sent her an invitation. Matt and I had talked extensively about Ashley during our engagement. They'd dated for 3 years before I came along, and their breakup had been messy and painful for both of them. Ashley had accused Matt of cheating on her with me, which wasn't true since Matt and I didn't start dating until 6 months after their relationship ended. But Ashley had never accepted that explanation, and she'd made several attempts to contact Matt during our first year together. Matt had been completely transparent with me about their relationship and its aftermath. He'd shown me the angry text messages Ashley had sent, the voicemails where she alternated between begging him to come back and accusing him of ruining her life. He'd even changed his phone number twice to try to get her to stop contacting him. Eventually, the messages had stopped, and we'd assumed Ashley had moved on with her life. But seeing her at our wedding, uninvited and unwelcome, sent a chill down my spine. I tried to catch Matt's eye to point her out, but he was focused on our vows and didn't notice my distraction. I decided not to mention it during the ceremony, thinking I'd deal with it later. During the reception, I kept looking for Ashley in the crowd, but I never saw her again. I began to wonder if I'd imagined the whole thing, or if maybe she'd realized she shouldn't be there and had left on her own. My maid of honor, Nicole, assured me that wedding days were stressful and that it was easy to see threats where none existed. "Katie, you're being paranoid," Nicole said as she helped me bustle my dress for the first dance. "Even if Ashley was here, which I doubt, what's the worst thing that could happen? She watches you marry the man she lost and realizes she needs to move on with her life." Nicole had a point, and I tried to put Ashley out of my mind and focus on enjoying my wedding reception. Matt and I danced to At Last by Etta James. We fed each other cake without making a mess, and we laughed with our friends and family late into the evening. By the time we made it up to our honeymoon suite at midnight, I'd almost forgotten about the strange woman in black who may or may not have crashed our wedding. The Driscoll Hotel had given us their most luxurious suite as a wedding gift from the management. It was a gorgeous room with 12-foot ceilings, antique furniture, and a king-size bed covered in rose petals that the staff had arranged while we were at the reception. There was a bottle of champagne on ice, chocolate-covered strawberries, and a card congratulating us on our special day. Matt and I were both exhausted from the long day, but we were also giddy with happiness and maybe a little tipsy from the champagne at the reception. We decided to change out of our wedding attire into comfortable pajamas before we settled in for our first night as a married couple. That's when I got the idea for my little prank. Matt had gone down to the ice machine to fill the champagne bucket, and I was alone in the room changing into the white silk nightgown I'd bought specially for our wedding night. But instead of waiting for him in bed like a traditional bride, I decided to hide under the bed and surprise him when he came back. I know it sounds silly now, but at the time, it seemed romantic and playful. Matt and I had always had a relationship built on laughter and pranks, and I thought it would be funny to make him look around the room wondering where his new wife had disappeared to. I planned to grab his ankles when he walked past the bed, or maybe wait until he called out my name before jumping out and shouting, "Surprise!" So I turned off the main lights, leaving only the soft glow of the bedside lamps, and crawled under the king-size bed to wait for Matt's return. The space under the bed was larger than I'd expected, with enough room for me to lie flat on my stomach and peer out toward the door. The rose petals from the bedspread had fallen onto the floor, creating a romantic carpet that smelled like our wedding bouquet. I was lying there for maybe 5 minutes, getting more excited about my surprise by the minute, when I heard the sound of a key card in the door lock. I held my breath and prepared to watch Matt's feet as he entered the room, planning my perfect moment to reveal myself. But the feet that entered the room were wearing black high heels, not Matt's dress shoes. My heart stopped as I watched a pair of slender legs in black stockings walk purposefully across our honeymoon suite. These definitely weren't Matt's legs, and they definitely weren't moving like someone who was supposed to be in this room. The footsteps were careful and deliberate, like someone trying not to make noise or attract attention. I pressed myself as flat as possible against the floor and tried to control my breathing as the mysterious intruder moved around our room. From my hiding spot under the bed, I could see her feet moving from the door toward the dresser where we'd placed our wedding cards and gifts. She paused there for several minutes, and I could hear the sound of paper rustling and items being moved around. Then the feet moved toward the closet where our clothes were hanging. Again, more rustling sounds and what seemed like a systematic search through our belongings. Whoever this was, they weren't here to steal random items or vandalize our room. They were looking for something specific. That's when I heard her voice, and my blood turned to ice. Where did he put it? Ashley's voice was barely a whisper, but I recognized it immediately from the few times I'd met her during the awkward transition period when Matt was trying to get his things back from her apartment. Ashley was in our honeymoon suite, on our wedding night, going through our personal belongings and looking for something. But how had she gotten in? And what was she looking for? I watched her feet move around the room for another 10 minutes, opening drawers, checking pockets of our clothes, and even looking through the bathroom. She was being methodical and thorough, like someone who had planned this intrusion carefully and had a specific goal in mind. Then I heard her make a phone call. "It's me," she said quietly. "I'm in the room, but I can't find what we're looking for. Are you sure he brought it with him?" There was a pause while she listened to whoever was on the other end of the call. "Okay, I'll keep looking. But we need to hurry. They'll be back soon." My mind was racing as I tried to process what I was witnessing. Ashley wasn't working alone. She had an accomplice, and together they were searching our hotel room for something that belonged to Matt. But what could they possibly be looking for, and how had they gotten access to our locked room? Then Ashley's voice became clearer as she moved closer to the bed where I was hiding. "I don't care if it takes all night," she said into her phone. "I've been planning this for too long to give up now. If I can't have Matt, then I'm going to make sure he pays for what he did to me. And that little nurse he married is going to learn what it feels like to have her perfect life destroyed. The hatred in Ashley's voice was chilling. This wasn't just about getting closure or moving on from a failed relationship. This was about revenge, and somehow I'd become a target simply by falling in love with and marrying the man she couldn't get over. As I lay under the bed, listening to Ashley plot against my husband and me, I realized that this went far beyond a simple break-in or even stalking. Ashley had somehow gained access to our hotel room on our wedding night. She was working with at least one other person, and she was looking for something that could apparently be used to hurt Matt in some way. But what scared me most was the realization that this probably wasn't the first time Ashley had invaded our privacy. If she was this organized and had this level of access to our personal space, how long had she been watching us? How many times had she been in our apartment, our cars, our workplaces without us knowing? Then I heard something that made my blood run completely cold. "Don't worry," Ashley said to whoever was on the phone. "I found the spare room key, exactly where you said it would be. And I've got everything we need to make this look convincing. By tomorrow morning, Matt Richardson is going to be in jail, and his precious little wife is going to realize she married a criminal." That's when I understood that this wasn't just about revenge or obsession. Ashley was planning to frame Matt for something, and whatever evidence she was planting in our hotel room was designed to destroy his life and our marriage. I had to make a choice. I could continue hiding under the bed and hope that Ashley would leave without discovering me, but then Matt would walk into whatever trap she was setting for him. Or I could try to stop her somehow, but risk exposing myself to someone who was clearly dangerous and unstable. As Ashley continued her methodical search of our room, getting closer and closer to the bed where I was hiding, I realized that I might be the only thing standing between my new husband and a carefully planned destruction of his life. But I also realized that I was trapped under a bed, with no way to call for help, no way to warn Matt, and no way to escape without being discovered by someone who had already proven she was willing to break the law to get what she wanted. That's when Ashley's phone rang again, and what I heard next made me realize that the situation was even worse than I'd thought. "He's coming back," Ashley said quickly. "I can see him getting off the elevator. Did you get everything in place?" A pause. "Good. Make sure you're ready with the call to the police. This has to look like they discovered it themselves, not like we planted it." I heard Ashley's footsteps moving quickly toward what I assumed was the bathroom, probably to hide until Matt returned to the room. But then I heard something that made me realize I was about to witness my husband being framed for a crime he didn't commit, and there was nothing I could do to stop it without exposing myself to Ashley's revenge. The sound of Matt's key card in the door meant my new husband was about to walk into a trap, and I was the only person who knew what was waiting for him. As Matt's familiar footsteps entered our honeymoon suite, I had to make the most important decision of my life: stay hidden and safe while my husband was destroyed, or reveal myself and fight for our future together. The choice was easier than I thought. I waited until Matt was fully in the room and had set down the ice bucket before I made my move. Instead of surprising him with a playful prank, I was about to save him from something far more serious. "Matt," I whispered as loudly as I dared, "don't move, don't say anything. Just listen to me very carefully." Matt's feet stopped moving, and I could hear the confusion in his voice when he quietly said, "Katie, where are you? What's going on?" "I'm under the bed," I whispered. "Ashley is in our bathroom. She's been in here for 20 minutes going through our stuff, and she's planning to frame you for something. She has an accomplice, and they're about to call the police." There was a moment of absolute silence, and then Matt said very quietly, "Are you serious right now?" Before I could answer, I heard Ashley's phone ring in the bathroom, and her voice carrying through the thin walls. "Is he back? Okay, give me 2 minutes and then make the call. Tell them, you're a guest in the next room, and you heard suspicious activity. This is going to work perfectly." That's when Matt understood that I wasn't pranking him and that we were both in serious danger. "Katie," he said quietly, I'm going to call hotel security. Can you stay hidden until they get here? Yes, I whispered back. But Matt, she has a room key. Someone inside the hotel is helping her. I watched Matt's feet move quickly toward the phone, and I heard him dial hotel security. This is Matt Richardson in the honeymoon suite, he said in a calm but urgent voice. We have an intruder in our room who has been here for at least 20 minutes. I need security up here immediately, and I need you to call the police. That's when all hell broke loose. Ashley burst out of the bathroom, and I could hear the shock and rage in her voice when she saw Matt on the phone. What are you doing? She screamed. You can't call the police. You're supposed to be the one in trouble. Ashley, Matt said firmly, you need to leave this room right now. I don't know how you got in here or what you think you're accomplishing, but this is breaking and entering, and you're going to be arrested. No, Ashley said, and her voice had turned from rage to something that sounded almost panicked. You don't understand. I have evidence that you've been stealing from your company. I have documents that prove you've been embezzling money for months. When the police get here, they're going to arrest you, not me. From under the bed, I could see Ashley's feet moving erratically around the room, and I realized that whatever plan she'd been executing was falling apart now that Matt had called for help instead of walking into her trap. Ashley, Matt said, and his voice was sad rather than angry, I don't know what you think you've found or what you think you're going to accomplish here, but I've never stolen anything from anyone. Whatever documents you have are fake. They're not fake, Ashley screamed. I have bank statements, transfer records, everything the police need to prove what you've been doing. And your precious little wife is going to watch you get arrested on your wedding night. That's when I realized that Ashley didn't just want to frame Matt for a crime. She wanted me to witness his arrest and humiliation. This whole elaborate plan was as much about hurting me as it was about destroying him. But Ashley had made one crucial mistake. She'd revealed her plan to someone who was hidden and listening, and now we had advance warning of what was coming. The next few minutes were chaotic and terrifying. Hotel. Security arrived first, followed quickly by Detective Brown from the Austin Police Department. Ashley tried to convince them that she was a hotel employee who had discovered evidence of a crime. But her story fell apart quickly when security confirmed that she wasn't on their staff and had no legitimate reason to be in our room. When they searched Ashley's purse, they found forged bank documents, fake letterheads from Matt's company, and what appeared to be evidence that had been fabricated to make him look guilty of embezzlement. They also found a spare room key that she'd somehow obtained from someone inside the hotel. But the most damning evidence against Ashley was her own phone, which contained text messages and call logs proving that she'd been planning this frame-up for months with the help of at least 2 other people. Detective Brown was amazed when I finally crawled out from under the bed and explained what I'd witnessed and overheard during Ashley's invasion of our room. Mrs. Richardson, he said, you may have just saved your husband from a very sophisticated frame-up. Without your testimony about what Miss Morrison said and did while she thought she was alone, it would have been much harder to prove that this evidence was fabricated. The investigation that followed revealed that Ashley's obsession with Matt went far deeper than any of us had realized. She'd been stalking us for over a year, taking photographs, following our daily routines, and gathering information about our personal and professional lives. She'd also recruited 2 accomplices, a former hotel employee who still had access to master keys, and a graphic designer who had helped her create the forged documents. Ashley's plan had been to plant the fake evidence in our hotel room, then have her accomplice call the police claiming to have heard suspicious activity from our suite. When the police arrived to investigate the noise complaint, they would have discovered the planted evidence and arrested Matt on our wedding night. The psychological evaluation that was ordered as part of Ashley's legal proceedings revealed that she'd suffered a complete break from reality after her relationship with Matt ended. In her mind, Matt had stolen her future, and she'd become convinced that destroying his life was the only way to restore balance to the universe. Ashley was eventually charged with breaking and entering, stalking, conspiracy to commit fraud, and attempted frame-up of an innocent person. She pled guilty to all charges in exchange for a sentence of 5 years in prison and mandatory psychological counseling. The hotel employee who had helped her was fired and charged with theft and conspiracy. The graphic designer who had created the fake documents was charged with fraud and forgery. As for Matt and me, our wedding night prank had turned into something far more serious than either of us could have imagined. But in a strange way, the experience brought us closer together and taught us both the importance of trusting each other completely. We spent the rest of our honeymoon week at the Driscoll Hotel, and the management was so horrified by what had happened that they upgraded us to their presidential suite and gave us a full refund for our wedding reception. The staff who had been involved in providing Ashley with access to our room were terminated, and new security protocols were put in place to prevent similar incidents. Matt and I have been married for 3 years now, and we've never had any further contact with Ashley. We learned through the legal proceedings that her obsession with destroying our relationship had consumed her life to the point where she'd lost her job, her apartment, and most of her friends. Looking back on that night, I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I hadn't decided to hide under the bed as a wedding night prank. Would Ashley's plan have worked? Would Matt have been arrested and charged with crimes he didn't commit? Would our marriage have been destroyed before it had a chance to begin? But I also think about how one small decision to surprise my new husband with a silly prank ended up saving both our lives from someone whose obsession had turned into something truly dangerous. These days, Matt and I live in a beautiful house in South Austin, and we've never had any problems with stalkers or ex-girlfriends. We've learned to be more careful about our personal security, but we've also learned not to let fear control our lives. Sometimes when we're lying in bed at night, Matt will joke about checking under the bed for intruders before we go to sleep. And sometimes I'll joke about hiding under there to surprise him, just like on our wedding night. But we both know that we were incredibly lucky that night. Lucky that I decided to play a prank. Lucky that I stayed hidden long enough to hear Ashley's plans. And lucky that we had each other to face whatever came next. Our marriage survived its first test before it was even 12 hours old, and we've been stronger together ever since.